Airing first on Asheville FM, WSFM LP 103.3 in Asheville, this is The Final Straw Radio, a weekly anarchist and anti-authoritarian radio show broadcasting out of occupied Salagi land in southern Appalachia. We bring you voices and perspectives from projects and struggles all around the world. This week, we're continuing our pandemic-fication and presenting audio from this month's Bad News Angry Voices from Around the World. Bad News is a monthly English-language podcast with updates from various participants in the A Radio network of anarchist and anti-authoritarian radio and audio projects. If you like what you hear, we invite you to check out other projects in the network, learn more about our work, how to get your project involved, and to listen to other episodes of Bad News by visiting a-radio-network.org. And you can keep an eye on our Twitter feed for regular retweets of episodes coming out at roughly the 15th of each month, or checking our Twitter feed's list for the A Radio network. We'll also be featuring audio from the most recent episode of our cousin project, Dissident Island Radio, where they spoke with a fan of London Anarchist Black Cross about the upcoming July 23rd to 30th Week of Solidarity with Anarchist Prisoners. Dissident Island Radio is also a member of the Channel Zero Network and the A Radio Network, and you can find more of their work, including their shows dating back almost 13 years to the day, at dissidentisland.org. Happy birthday! The Final Straw is a proud member of the Channel Zero Network of anarchist podcasts, and here's a jingle from another member of CZN.
You were born a hunter-gatherer. You were born a social animal, one that moves within the land and moves between bands in a world that was meant to be less measured, less exact. We were meant for lives with more meaning and less consequence. A life where connection and meaning are implicit, where animals have voices and trees have stories. A world where rivers flow unabated and water isn't a health hazard. A world without fences, a world without flags, a world without rulers and gods. It's our world, the world of primal anarchy.
We are here to say that either the world burns or the cities do. We're here to say that abusers convince you that you have no choice. We're here to say that marketers convince you that you have their options. We're here to say that you are wild, that you can be free. We're here to say that there's a match in one hand and bull cutters in the other. And we aren't here to say that the world is waiting. We are here to say that the world is fighting. We are here to say that their story only ends one way. And we're here to tell you that there are others.
Primal Anarchy Podcast is a collection of rants, tirades, condemnations, readings, musings, explorations, response, interviews, and iterations hosted by Primal Anarchist writers Kevin and Natasha Tucker.
Find us online at primalanarchy.org, all major podcast platforms, and the Channel Zero Anarchist Podcast Network.
But first, some words from anarchist prisoner Sean Swain.
What you say, what you say, what you say, what? We're caught like a
For anyone protesting, looting, burning cop cars, toppling Civil War statues, or engaging in any other forms of good, clean family fun, there's a recent development you should know about. It's something called geofence warrants. Have you heard about these? There was a case in Virginia, a bank robbery. The robber got away with over 90 grand. So, what the thought goblins did, they issued a warrant to Google, demanding that Google provide the investigators with information that identified every mobile device that was present in the area of the bank. By process of elimination, being able to identify all the other devices' owners, they focused on the one guy whose device was there, and they nabbed him. Searching his home, they found a gun and 90 grand, and he confessed to the crime. Law enforcement, more and more, is resorting to these so-called geofence warrants, gathering metadata from service providers in order to identify everyone who was in the area of an incident. Google specifically archives all this information in something it calls a sensor vault. Certainly, other service providers have identical or at least similar such archives for stored data. So think of the implications. Imagine you and I are friends, and we really hate the cops. We go out protesting. I've got an iPhone in my pocket. You've got a BlackBerry. Now, quick side note, for full disclosure, I don't even know what these fucking things are. I got locked up before Al Gore invented the internet, so I don't know a BlackBerry from something Kirk and Spock used for communicating with Scotty, just so you know. But I'm carrying an iPhone. You've got your BlackBerry. Kirk and Spock plan to meet us there later. We're all masked up as most people are during this zombie apocalypse, so facial recognition is out. At some point in the evening's festivities, you get to tipping over and burning a cop car. For whatever reason, I don't get involved. I just cheer and dance along with Kirk and Spock. We don't know it, but the fart goblins really take that cop car torching personal, and they serve a geofence warrant on Google. They begin the process of eliminating those devices that belong to others who aren't wearing masks, or otherwise eliminatable, like media and cops. My iPhone and your BlackBerry remain in the pool of devices belonging to potential suspects. So, over the next few weeks, they monitor all of those devices. They notice that on several occasions, your device and my device are in really close proximity. One of those times, we got refreshments at a gas station. So the fart goblins get the footage from the gas station security cameras to compare with the footage from the cop car burning. You happen to be wearing the same hoodie. Now, that's just one hypothetical as to how this insidious investigative tool can be used. I don't know how they're using it, but I can imagine that once they identify all the protesters present, where someone breaks a window or someone topples a statue, they will continue to look for links between those devices and perhaps find ways to track them, to monitor interactions, perhaps map out their theory about how the protesters' social networks are arranged and organized. Perhaps they attempt to identify the so-called ringleaders. Perhaps those ringleaders find themselves inordinately pulled over, cited for minor stuff, harassed, targeted, and they don't even know that the reason for it is that the cops keep seeing their cell phones where all the disruptions occur. Consider also that once your device is identified, there's really nothing stopping the fart goblins from developing a whole new hub of investigation, with all the spokes radiating outward from you. Who are your friends? What do they do? How frequently are you in contact? What do you discuss? What I'm saying is, the potential for fart goblins to engage in social mapping is virtually unlimited. So just some suggestions from somebody locked up since before Al Gore invented the internet. If it were me, I would probably leave my electronic devices at home. You can't trace, track, and monitor something that isn't there. If you absolutely need instant communication with others, then perhaps you and your friends should go get some Walmart burner phones and an alternative means of communicating while you leave your devices at home. But that's only the beginning. Don't forget that everyone else with their devices around you are also a potential threat. So you have to let others know to leave devices home when protesting or rebelling. Maybe a pamphlet you can hand out to spread the word. Could be you have people strategically located with large containers to collect people's devices as they enter an area. But then the danger is when the fascists come and seize that big bucket of phones on some pretense. I don't want to give that advice, because I don't know how many of these devices work. I don't want to tell you to at least take the batteries out. I think you would have to do some research to find out what kind of life each device has after the removal of the batteries, and whether there still exists some method for tracking that. Again, if you don't know for certain, to be safe, leave the devices at home and spread the word. This is Anarchist Prisoner Sean Swain, in exile from Ohio with Buckingham Correctional in Dillwyn, Virginia. If you're listening, you are the resistance.
You can write to Sean Swain at his latest address at Sean Swain, number 2015638, Buckingham Correctional, P.O. Box 430, Dillwyn, Virginia, 23936. You can find his past writings, recordings of his audio segments, and updates on his case at SeanSwain.org, or now follow him on Twitter at SwainRocks.
Up next, we've got somebody who's kind of a big fan of London Anarchist Black Cross, and they're going to be talking to us about the International Week of Solidarity with Anarchist Prisoners, which is running from the 23rd to the 30th of August. So there's still plenty of time to get your actions together for that one.
Hey, so I came here as a diehard fan of London ABC to talk about the International Week of Solidarity with Anarchist Prisoners coming up in August. There's Just a short statement from ABC to preface what I wanted to say, though. So, why are anarchists targeted for repression? Well, it's in no small part, it's because of a kind of explicit consciousness that's present in anarchist activity. And of course, we should celebrate that shared consciousness. We should elaborate on it, act on it, and if it helps, we should use what's offered under the banner of the Black Cross to do that, which would be maybe the collation of information, fundraisers, letter writing, mobilizations. But in doing all that, let's not delude ourselves that self-proclaimed anarchist action is some higher form of refusal, of non-compliance, of relating otherwise, of becoming dangerous, of all the things that the state and its prisons exist to stamp out. So I guess what I'm saying is whatever means that we have for ameliorating conditions of people inside, of nurturing of links, of continuity of struggle across prison walls, let's use them, but don't let's stop there and say that's all we have to say about prisons and prisoners. Anarchy is the destitution and destruction of all prisons, the world that needs them, and the logic that extends through them and projects into every aspect of our lives. So it would be remiss of me not to dwell on the obvious, which is that we've been seeing an anti-police uprising in the past weeks, leaderless and yet black-led, internationally and sporadically in the UK. And at the slightest hint of this potential insurgency, for example, simply gatherings of people refusing to be moved on, we're seeing the same kinds of repression that Keir Starmer was at the centre of in 2011, potentially clicking back into place right now, carried out by the same police that Jeremy Corbyn wanted to supercharge in 2019. So with respect to all of that, anarchists obviously are in many ways involved in anti-repression projects, particularly around demos, and I'm thinking of legal observers, police station support, court observers and so on. But a question, I guess, to pose to the listener is, what about the people who stand their ground, who stand up to the police outside of a demonstration, people who are testing this tantalizing idea that police are not an all-seeing, all-powerful, all-respected force, and acting on that idea on the street or at the block party or wherever. I haven't got a specific proposal to bring, but as always, the invitation is open to get in touch with London ABC, and that would be London_ABC at riseup.net.
Okay, well, that's all well and good, but can we please have something about the International Week of Solidarity with Anarchist Prisoners?
Well, since you asked, the International Week of Solidarity with Anarchist Prisoners takes place this year, 23rd to 30th of August. There's a website, solidarity.international. So go check out the up-to-date worldwide prisoner address list. There's only one UK prisoner on that list. It's Sam Folder at Foston Hall. If London ABC has anything to add, they will let it be known. But I think the plan in London is delivering information and materials for letter writing to wherever it's potentially wanted. So if you would be interested in helping with distributing stuff around London, then you could, again, email London_ABC at riseup.net. So obviously we don't have a lot of anarchist prisoners in the UK, at least publicly, seeking support. I remember a quote from Asbo in Bang Up and Smash where she says, "I don't know if this is due to cunningly evading capture or a sad sign of the times that not many people are risking their quote-unquote liberty." But at any rate, there's a lot of prisoners and ongoing trials happening internationally. I know for sure listeners to Dissident Island are extremely well informed about repression against anarchists, but I just wanted to give a quick roundup of calls for support that are current and urgent. And in short, there's a lot of places where money is needed right now for obvious reasons. So I guess, maybe if those benefit sanctions haven't kicked in yet, maybe you've been saving a bit of money from, not going to the pub, or maybe your Findom career is taking off, or you're in a position to suck a dick or post nudes for the revolution. Every little helps in every sense, and London ABC exists to make sure that this kind of support can come right back to you and your friends if you ever need it, heaven forfend. So I'll get onto the roundup, and if you go to network23.org/LondonABC right now, you'll find all the links pertaining to this in a blog post, and you can just go set up a standing order or start out on a little letter while you're listening to the rest of the program. Why not? So, content warning for, obviously, explicit discussion of state violence. First place on my list is so-called Greece. A good and reliable place to send funds is firefund.net/imprisoned-Solly. There was an urgent call in April for financial solidarity after the suspension of public events, which would have been used for fundraising. You can read that call on actforfree.nostate.net, and there's an email address at the bottom of that call out as well. Some good news came out of Greece last month with a hefty sum of 20,000 euros getting raised for pre-trial bail money within a 15-day deadline in June for 2 people arrested in Thessaloniki in May. That is really incredible news, but it just goes to show the kinds of pressures that people are under there and the need to send funds, especially now that certain avenues for fundraising are not available. Moving swiftly on to so-called Indonesia, there was a call for solidarity after arrests in Tangerang and Bekasi. London ABC reblogged a whole post about that, and again, go to the blog for a PayPal and an email address about that. After, I think, a total of 5 arrests, 2 anarchists are currently on trial on very trumped-up charges, I think allegedly for spraying graffiti, and looking at up to 10 years possibly. After the arrest in April, there was a report of beatings, strangulation, and solitary confinement, and 2 people are already imprisoned for 4 months after being tried as minors. Next stop is so-called Italy, where the headline I've heard is 20 custodial measures in less than a month. So there's yet another wave of repression that's just hit, the latest in a long series where people are seeing, as well as prison sentences, there's a lot of imprisonment on remand, heavy bail conditions, house arrest, suspended sentences, and just these endless, looming, slow trials. The latest police operation is called Białystok, named, I guess, after the city, which I found out is the place where there was the second largest ghetto uprising in Nazi-occupied Poland. So I don't know if that would be like a anti-Semitic, anti-Antifa trope, but who am I to read into that? There were 7 arrests in Italy, France, and Spain. 5 are in prison, 2 on house arrest. You can read English updates again on Act for Freedom, but an absolutely crucial address to check out is roundrobin.info. There you can get the most up-to-date and accurate info about prison addresses especially. There's addresses available for all 5 prisoners. 2 of them in particular, I found that you need to go to Round Robin to get the latest. Nico was transferred to Terni, and Francesca in Almeria in Spain. There was some mistake or inconsistency with the postcode that was posted at one point, so definitely a good idea to go to roundrobin.info. In terms of older police operations, I'm sure everyone remembers Scriptum Manent. There was an appeal in that case that started just now on 1st of July. Anna and Marco are on the Solidarity International list I mentioned, but as far as I know, Alfredo, Nicola and Sandro are also still inside. Again, there's a call for financial solidarity and updates on Act for Free and Round Robin. Prometeo, Natasha and Beppe are still inside as a result of that operation, and there was some kind of preliminary hearing in that case held on the 22nd of June. Their names are on the international list. And finally, Scintilla. There's one address on the international list for that case. The last I heard was that nobody was currently in prison for that operation, so hopefully there'll be some clarification coming about that. Next up, I've got so-called Czech Republic. I'm sure everyone remembers the Phoenix trial. Now it's Phoenix 2, Electric Boogaloo. Next hearing, 13th of July. The best blog to go to for that is abcnews.noblogs.org. And I'll just read from there. On Monday, 13th of July at 8:30 a.m., there will take place the next hearing of Phoenix 2 at the court in Most. Just for reminding, the trial is against 4 anarchists and 1 environmentalist, and they face up to 3 to 10 years of prison. Show support to the accused ones by being present at the court or by any other solidarity action. Next is so-called Germany. The 8th of July 2019 was the date of the park bench arrest in Hamburg in an operation supposedly targeted at people planning an arson attack. Now, famously, there's been a wave of arson and sabotage attacks across Europe in solidarity with those targeted, as well as other actions. There's a bank account and a Rote Hilfe postal address up on the blog. I don't think that's on the international solidarity list. Actually, in April, they said they had limited access to that post box, but because of COVID, so I assume things are a bit easier now. And finally, the United Snakes. Eric King, vegan anarchist and alleged incendiary saboteur. He is on the list, but I've got just some fresh updates about him. There was an urgent call for phone solidarity in the last days, and also according to his website, there's a desperate need of legal defense funds, and that website is supportericking.org. Also in America, your one-stop shop for anti-authoritarian prisoner support is New York City Anarchist Black Cross. Cannot recommend that blog enough. They have an illustrated guide to political prisoners and prisoners of war. They've got the POW birthday calendar. Don't forget Matulu Shakur turning 70 in August. And they've also got their regular updates and announcements mail out with Denver ABC and Sacramento prisoner support. Finally, also, the 13th of July is the first year anniversary of the death of Will Van Spronsen, murdered by police for an attempted armed and incendiary assault on an ICE concentration camp in Tacoma, so-called Washington. And the 13th of July is the same day as which new trial starts? Well, if you were listening carefully, you would know that it was the new Phoenix trial. So, all the links I just mentioned will be online at network23.org/LondonABC. And if it's not already in your diaries, remember 23rd to 30th of August, International Week of Solidarity with Anarchist Prisoners. Email London ABC if you want to help distribute address lists and letter writing materials around London. And a reminder of the website again, network23.org/LondonABC. This has been your anti-social, no affiliations or relations. And to quote the Edelweiss Pirates Sarah Connor Brigade, if you can hear this message, you are the resistance.
Thanks very much. Plenty to keep busy with anyway.
And now some words from Comrade Malik, held by the Federal Bureau of Prisons.
Revolutionary greetings, comrades. This is Keith Malik, Washington, reporting in from behind enemy lines. This is my birthday message, my message of solidarity to all of my anarchist comrades at the Final Straw Radio and all across the United States. Listen to me carefully. Multiracial unity across all party lines and political affiliations may not be the end-all, cure-all, but I believe it is a start in the right direction. No one feels comfortable talking about race relations in America. Nevertheless, if we are going to heal the wounds that continue to be ripped open by weekly events in America, we must sit down at the table of sisterhood and brotherhood in order to find realistic solutions. Allowing the U.S. military to mobilize on U.S. soil in order to silence our voices of protest is not the solution that we need.
This call is from a federal prison.
All of my life, I've been a good writer. When I chose the path of becoming the editor of the San Francisco Bayview National Black newspaper, I thought that this was the realization of my life's mission. However, through my writing and my advocacy for others, I have began to change lives. This is because of the mutual aid, solidarity, and collective support that I've had with anarchist and socialist comrades all across the United States and even Europe. I now am utilizing my writing as a means to improve the lives of others. I always said that once I gained notoriety and a platform, I would utilize my platform to serve those who had no voice. In essence, I am now a voice for those who have no voice. I want to point your attention to a comrade of ours who is in federal prison. His name is Eric King. He has been degraded, dehumanized, oppressed, silenced, and isolated for months. In June, he was assaulted by federal officers. He is going to be going to trial soon, and he hasn't been able to have any access to his legal representation. Comrades, I just don't want you to collectively call out for justice for Eric King. Let's talk to our allies at the National Lawyers Guild in the American Civil Liberties Union, and let's ask them to support Eric King. If Mike Pompeo will come out on national television and say that the United States is a bastion for human rights and civil liberties, then let's hold the United States of America accountable when they actually hurt its citizens, even those citizens who are trapped behind these razor wire plantations, these slave compounds, and these gulags run by the American government. We must call the U.S. government out and say, if you want to be a bastion for human rights, then don't just talk about it, be about it. Please, this 52nd birthday, my comrade Julie Schneier said that I am now operating with a full deck. If you agree with Julie, and if you agree with me, then by all means, help us free Eric King and get social justice and meaningful legal representation for Eric King. I'm sticking to what made me the person that I am today, not advocating for myself, but advocating for others. This is Comrade Malik, reporting from behind enemy lines. Dare to struggle, dare to win. All power to the people.
This is the final straw, and you're hearing from this month's episode of Bad News, with Radio Zones of Subversive Expression from Athens, Greece, then Chernoluknia from Ljubljana, Slovenia. More at a-radio-network.org. Bad News.
Bad news for the state.
Bad news for capital.
Bad news for patriarchy.
Bad news for all forms of domination.
Bad news. Angry voices from around the world.
Our monthly info show from anarchist and anti-authoritarian radio projects worldwide.
If these news are bad, I don't want to be good.
Hello everybody, this is Bad News, episode 36 for July 2020. Enjoy!
This is Bad News for July by the Radio Zones of Suppressive Expression.
It took more than 3 months to force the government to release in detail the amounts that the media received as part of the stay-at-home campaign. 20 million euros were given to the media who daily put the agenda in the country, leaving the scandalous way in which the government decided to strengthen them in the middle of a pandemic and quarantine. Unprecedented scenes of police violence took place in Exarchia on the night of Friday, July 3rd. During a music concert in solidarity with the evacuated Dervenian squad, the cops attacked to the people and even chased customers at the nearby bars.
Victoria Square. On Saturday, 4th of July, around 12 in the midnight, riot police made their appearance in Victoria Square in order to transfer the migrants living there to the Amygdaleza detention center with the excuse being the insufficient and unhealthy living conditions at the square. After the migrants' refusal to leave and the interventions of the Solidarians who had gathered at the spot, the cops violently attempted to take people into the police transportation vans.
anti-report of Črna Lukna for international comrades from Slovenian unrest, that in the middle of March, because of the virus, started with drumming on balconies, went on the bicycles and ended up on foot against the right-wing government with authoritarian, neoliberalistic and nationalistic intentions.
Around 10,000 people are still gathering every Friday in the capital and more than 25 other cities. But also on other occasions, mainly connected with environment and culture, or for example in solidarity with people fighting against racism in USA. Mainly not on bikes anymore. There are three bigger groupations, anti-capitalist, cultural and environmental bloc, that are collaborating in solidarity. All local autonomous groups of Anarchist Federation, Federacija za anarhistično organiziranje, are involved.
After regime media attacks on the protesters, individual repression and general repression of the police, government instrumentalized neo-Nazi groupations to confront the protesters.
But we as anarchists stay strong and with the people. We didn't let that regime would divide protesters on good and bad ones. On one occasion there was a lot of protesters coming dressed in black to be in solidarity with the anti-capitalist bloc that was previously targeted. We managed to resist the repression. There is big solidarity support with the repressed. Also a quite big and diverse protest in front of the central police station on the night when police took a few people into custody happened.
Also the last attempt to establish pro-government protest with Nazi groupations wearing yellow vests as a symbol was successfully suppressed. With our effort and also the effort of the liberal civil society, general public rejected nationalistic manifestations as such. Only 40 Nazis showed on their protest against many thousands of people standing together against them.
One of the very important places of coordination between protesters are also open assemblies initiated by the anarchists.
In solidarity from streets of Slovenia.
This is the final straw, and you're hearing from this month's episode of Bad News with Free Social Radio 1431 AM from Thessaloniki, Greece, followed by A Radio Berlin from Germany and Radio Fragmata from Athens, Greece.
Greetings from Radio 1431 AM from Thessaloniki, Greece. The two comrades, ZR and SD, were arrested on 27th of May at Thessaloniki, Greece. ZR was arrested right at the entrance of his apartment building, while the other was persecuted and arrested by undercover cops wearing civilian clothes and OPIE special forces for crime prevention and suppression in the area of Kalamaria, Thessaloniki. The cops broke into ZR's house and confiscated his electronic devices, his personal belongings such as his handwritten notes unrelated to the case, personal documents and family documents that do not belong to him. The cops also conducted a home search in a house in Chinari in a block of house squats that the comrade SD never declared that he lived in. The only clue of where he lived in was a piece of anonymous information. The OPIE units, accompanied by undercover cops, invaded the squats one after the other, broke down doors and windows, woke up comrades and demanded that they facilitate their work. The two comrades were transferred to the general police station and were accused of attempting an explosion, possession of explosives, violence against employees, disobedience and criminal conspiracy, according to a made-up indictment. On June 1st, they were released on the following terms: to give presents 3 times a month at a police station, prohibition of leaving the country, to pay a guaranteed bail of 10,000 for each one, a total 20,000 by 15th of June. During the short period of 15 days, a lot of actions took place by every means available for the financial support of the two comrades. The required amount was covered and given to the court.
The server of SPIV, which is a self-organized server that hosts 850 blogs among political and labor collectives, neighborhood assemblies and self-organized projects, has been located in Python University since the beginning of the project in 2008. On May 20, the server went out of order after an oral command of the rector of the Pandon University to their computerization section on the occasion of a complaint about digital privacy. More specifically, this complaint concerned 2 book titles that were uploaded in PDF format to one of the hundreds of blogs hosted by the server. On Thursday, 28th of May, a week after the shutdown, the rector said that they will refer the issue to the next Council of the Senate of Padon University, which was unknown when it will take place. On June 11, the administration crew of spiv.net and some comrades went to the council, expressed their political opinion on the importance of the server being in the university, and announced that the attack on spiv will be answered by the whole movement. Also, they informed the rector about all the previous and future solidarity actions. The same day, the spiv.net site and all the blogs were reactivated, and the rector will be considered accountable for any new suppress operations.
On Saturday, 4th July, around midnight, riot police made their appearance in Victoria Square in order to transfer the migrants living there to the Amygdaleza Detention Center, with the excuse being the insufficient and unhealthy living conditions at the square. After the migrants' refusal to leave and the interventions of Solidarians who had gathered at the spot, the cops violently attempted to take people into the police transportation vans. They took approximately 10 people, some of whom were immediately released. The transportation van left while other police vans remained in front of the hotel building. After a while, and as the migrants had calmed down a bit, and as the Solidarians were started to leave, riot police appeared from all sides of the square and attacked everyone, holding more than 20 people they randomly found on the nearby streets, hitting and dragging them to the vans.
At the same time, additional forces of riot police entered the square, hit the people there and tried to send them away towards the 3rd Septembriou and Patission Street, as their plan was to fully evacuate the square. The migrants left injured without their belongings and scattered around the city center. 22 people have been taken into custody in the police station of Kypseli. Among them, there was one person with a dislocated shoulder and a woman separated from her children who were left in the square. 4 of the people taken into custody were arrested, and the trial got postponed for July 16.
Cheers! Well, it's so nice here at the Syndicat Bar, and I'm really glad the project goes on. After all, in such a socially minded city as Berlin, no social project would be evicted amidst the corona troubles. No, what am I saying? In such a socially minded city as Berlin, no social project would be evicted ever.
Nope, they don't care about either of those things. Our collective bar Syndicat has received an eviction date for August 7th.
Bloody hell!
The fast appointment of a new eviction date shows clearly that the much-vaunted solidarity and consideration from politicians has no lasting effect. It's about getting all of the machinery to work again, including processes of marginalization.
This could be the first eviction after the lockdown, but it won't be the last. Liebig 34, Potz and Meuterei are also in acute danger. And generally speaking, we have countless people, small businesses and social projects who after the loss of their jobs, short time and the lockdown are facing an uncertain future. And while the most recent policies only aim to sustain the rental income of house owners, we are eating up our savings, go into debt or try to make do however we can.
But one thing will be the same as before the pandemic: our common and resolute resistance in solidarity against this eviction and for the long-term preservation of Syndicat.
The corona pandemic has shown us one more time that Neukölln and Berlin do not need less spaces like Syndikat, but much more. Spaces where people are welcome regardless of income, social status, the color of your skin, your gender, or sexual identity. Spaces that are active in their neighborhoods. And spaces where those social networks can be created and maintained, which are even more important in times of crisis.
Take the day off on August 7th, come early in the morning and in large numbers to the Schillerkies neighborhood. Stay updated with news and announcements over our many information channels. Think about how you are able and willing to participate at the protests against the eviction, on the day of the eviction, and of course, before. Every action counts, and all forms of action are appreciated.
To close, all important info at one glance. The first attempt to evict shall take place on August 7th. Get your infos from syndicatbleibt.noblogs.org, where you can also join a newsletter, or at Twitter under @syndicat44, as well as over the Telegram group that can be joined over the link t.me/syndicat44. Get off the defensive. Syndicat stays. We all stay.
Hello all, here's Radio Fragmata's bad news report for July, with updates on the general situation and the struggles in so-called Greece. As we reach the peak season of Greek summer tourism, the impending economic doom that awaits Greece becomes more and more obvious. Desperate attempts to appease tourism-based business owners at the risk of society's overall health have come to look embarrassing, as a 90% drop in tourism shows the absurd priorities of the Greek government to reopen borders amidst the coronavirus to fatten the pockets of just a few. However, at all costs, the current state is continuing to preserve the status quo regardless of reality, with the inevitability of even more extreme economic precarity that makes the 2008 crisis, which never ended, seem tolerable. The new administration is continuing the escalation of its war on immigrants and anarchists in order to distract the public and crush revolutionary discontent. Here are some news on the struggle of immigrants and refugees. The parallel world of misery created and maintained by the Greek state continues to be reinforced through aggressive measures and opportunism amidst the coronavirus. In the municipality of Aspropyrgos, bulldozers demolished an entire Roma camp, forcing the homelessness of a large community of Roma. On the islands of Lesbos and Samos, where some of the largest refugee camps exist, the measures created under the guise of coronavirus continue to give local police forces an unquestioned ability to segregate and isolate immigrants to camps. Victoria Square, a diverse central neighborhood of Athens, has been an area populated and embraced by refugee and immigrants since the beginning of the 2015 so-called refugee crisis. Starting on June 15th, buses of riot police had surrounded the square, attempting to trick refugees to be escorted to other refugee camps farther into the country and out of sight. Victoria Square continues to be under constant surveillance and assault by police. The insidious games created as heartless for immigrants and predatory opportunity for police by the state are heinous, to say at least. However, it has become to the new norm of Greek immigration policy. With floating dumps going up in the Aegean Sea to the absurd demands made to the most vulnerable who have ever been given asylum, the state is continuing a terrifying pogrom of misery and repression for the immigrant and refugee communities of Greece. Against the ban of assembly. In reminiscence of the junta in the late 60s and early 70s, the new Greek government was able to pass a law against freedom of assembly on July 9th. The parliament had a 187 majority of its 300 seats. The frequent cries for the law by Greece's New Democracy Party claimed that the unregulated freedom of assembly was being seen as a severe disparity for Athens traffic. This being one of the top talking points of the administration shines light on their focus and priorities. Regardless, the bill immediately sparked social unrest. On the day of the bill's passing, around 15,000 people took to the streets in Athens near and around the Greek parliament. Anarchists had scattered blocks among the demonstration. Unfortunately, anarchists were attacked quickly by both the police and the authoritarian left. Demonstrations by anarchists and autonomists also took place across Greece in Patra, Ioannina and Thessaloniki. As this is written, demonstrations without the approval of the state and deemed completely illegal going forward. Repression is nothing new in Greece. The bill will most likely solidify a more intense future of unquestioned brutality, detention and imprisonment for those taking the streets. The future will tell. As for the nature, Greece continues to ease protections of natural land. The coincidence of new pressure to develop and build on previously protected wilderness as tourism deteriorates in light of coronavirus is no accident. Communities are coming together across the country and taking to the forests, the mountains and the streets. Banners and graffiti of support for ecological resistance can be seen across the country as well, from the inner cities to the deep countryside. A recent action took place as well, demonstrating the will of people to defend the environment. In the Athens neighborhood of Chessariani, an arson attack took on a vehicle belonging to the construction company Intrakat. Intrakat is responsible for an array of wind turbine construction projects in Itheron and South Evia, as well as various other building sites exploiting and demolishing the environment, and is a notorious exploiter of vulnerable labor. On June 26th, the Dervenion 56 squad was evacuated by various police agencies. The Dervenion squad was one of the last squads remaining in Exarchia. Resistance did take place, as well as other actions have been taking place in response and against the general repression of squads. Graffiti and banners continue to be seen across the country. Additionally, a mob was reported to have attacked the mayor at a private event in response to his war on squads and grotesque use of public funds to decorate the center of Athens. There was also a demonstration outside the alleged owner of Dervenios' home. As for the rest, police continued to torment the locals of Exarchia. Continuing with the Greek prisons, the Department of Corrections in Greece have been punishing prisoners during the coronavirus by stripping them of their few rights for showing any discontent for treatment, as the threat of COVID-19 remains a significant threat to the health and safety of those imprisoned. The prisoners all over Greece are literally struggling for their lives. Last but not least, as we go to publish this, reports of the death of a comrade in Volos, Greece have come to our critical attention. Vasilis Magos was found dead on July 13th in his apartment by his mother, who had not heard from him. The reason we are mentioning this man's death is because it comes after weeks of his suffering due to a significant beating. While the beating caught on video was heinous enough, Vasilis was brought into custody and further beaten and tortured out of sight of supporters. Vasilis is known to the police as a local anarchist and football fan and was clearly targeted in the video. Once he returned home, he made this story public, at the time claiming a positive attitude, that he was happy to be alive and is ready for the long recovery ahead. An autopsy is going to be done. Regardless of what it will report, the days leading up to his mysterious death were days of painful suffering and disability due to the repression of police. His pain was caused by his desire to demonstrate solidarity with those arrested while resisting the exploitative ventures of the Greek state. The situation is just unfolding, but has sparked intense rage by the broader anarchist movement. Future will tell the depths of economic despair and political repression. What is certain, though, is that the mass discontent and frustration that prevails among Greek society and manifests in the desires of a broader revolutionary movement against the state and capitalism. All of you, take care and stand strong.
This is the final straw, and you're hearing from this month's episode of Bad News, featuring Frequenza from Germany and Dissident Island Radio from London, UK. You can learn more about the bad news at a-radio-network.org.
Hello, my name is Lisa. I'm from Leipzig.
Okay, we are here in the Hildegardstraße, Rassist, number 2. This looks really nice with a lot of people and info stand and talks. Can you tell us maybe what it's about this? Why you decide to organize something like this, and why is the Rassist like the motto for this?
Yes, today or like yesterday is the so-called birthday of anti-racist and anti-deportation riots, which took place here in the exact place we are now in Hildegardstraße in Leipzig. We are really close to Eisenbahnstraße, and this is a neighborhood which is where really many migrants live and where the police is behaving so badly because they are just present here. That's bad enough. But they are also like doing a lot of racial profiling. There's a lot of police violence. And like 1 year ago, a deportation from Germany to Spain should take place. And people wanted to stop the deportation, and they sat in front of the police car. And many people joined. In peak, I think there were like 500 people stopping the deportation. But it didn't work out in the end because the police just acted so violently and with a trick. And we failed in this part, but we stayed here even when the person was already brought away, and the police then started to try to get the people out of the street that they go home really violently. So they used tear gas, they used pepper spray and hit, and yeah, they were like hurting so many people so badly. And yeah, we were standing here demonstrating for like just basic human rights actually, and yeah, and you could see like really social riots here, and it was an act of resistance and it was an act of solidarity, and this we want to remember today.
What's mean this deportation case for the neighborhood? Why at this moment start all this solidarity movement in the neighborhood and not before, for example?
Yeah, often it was tried to stop police deportations, but it didn't work out really well because often they come at a time where, and really secretly, so people don't get to know it, but here on Eisenbahnstraße many people were on the street anyway. It was Thursday evening, I think, and via social media so many people joined, and this was really unique, I think, in Leipzig, and it was really unique for the neighborhood. And it was like a spontaneous reaction on the injustice and on the racism we have to face here every day. Yeah, and people were showing solidarity because of different reasons, because they are also affected by police controls or police violence, or they know people who are threatened by deportations and so on. Yeah, so you can really see class struggle and social struggles.
And can you tell us a bit of this event? Which were your goals to make this, and how you evaluate this? This is the second day.
Yes, after the event last year, there were different groups founded. So we have a solidarity group for the family of the deported person who had a contact with the family and with the deported person in Spain. And we try to get him here again. It didn't happen yet, but we are still fighting for it. On the other hand side, we have the Solidarity Committee I am part in, because we have 3 court people who also had to face prison and trial, which ended really badly for one person and luckily good for one person, but a second trial on the same people is happening also. So but the Solidarity Committee was supporting all the people who had to face repression and also did political work on what happened here. And then we have the third group, and this is like the organizing crew of like this event here, and they organized a street festival as we have it today last year already and this year again. Yes, so spontaneously many people found together. So some political groups were involved, especially groups who work with repression already, like the Rote Hilfe, the big institutional groups who are supporting a political repression, or we have Copwatch, we have Out of Action, or we have the Infobus, Sächsischer Flüchtlingsrat, so anti-racist working groups. Yeah, so different people found together, so also people from the neighborhood here connected with the left-wing groups, and we founded new structures, especially for this event.
And last, can you tell us a bit of the situation of Ayman, who is, I think it is the person who is confronted with this special hard repression now?
Yes, Ayman was caught here in the evening, he was arrested because a civil cop said that he threw stones and bottles, and he was arrested in preventional prison. I don't know the special term, but before the trial, until the trial starts, he was in prison already, even he was not found guilty yet, for 8 months. Yeah, and then there was a trial and he was sentenced free. Yeah, because only one civil cop was the evidence that he has done something, and there is no other evidence that he has done everything what prosecutors say he has done. Yeah, so the only way for the judge to sentence him was that he was found not guilty, because we live in a state of rule. And it's not possible to sentence a person if there's no evidence. And this one civil cop, he just repeated what he was writing in his protocol after the event, and any other questions he denied, because he said, I'm not allowed to say it, because when I say something about this, I would say something about methods we are working on as civil cops, watching crimes in cases of demonstrations, and that's not allowed for me, so I can't say anything. So he had to be set free. But the prosecutors, they are not satisfied with this sentence, so they said we want to do it again, and now we are facing the second trial, and we'll see if they have other evidence now. Yeah, but actually they can't sentence him.
But he's free now.
He is free now. He was set free already during the trial, but at this time he has already been in prison for 8 months. And he is father of a 4-year-old daughter. He is caring for her alone. Yeah, and it was a real struggle. He also lost his flat. He was without a flat when he came out of prison, and we supported him with that also. And I would say he is okay now, and he's really happy that he doesn't have to go to prison again, and he can stay with his daughter. But he's also really feared that the second trial will end differently. And he's still struggling also with the time in prison, the time he missed with his daughter. So in general, I would say it was a really successful repression in that way, because emotionally and financially and just socially, it was a really hard time for him, and it still is.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah, you're really welcome.
Welcome to Dissident Island's contribution to this month's edition of Bad News. The streets have been heating up across not-so-Great Britain throughout the month of June, so we have a hefty roundup of headlines for you today. Black Lives Matter demonstrations that started at the end of May have continued throughout June, with protests and street parties taking place every weekend across London and the UK. Another demonstration is planned in London on 5th of July, and protests will continue around the country on the 11th, with events in Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, Hull, Hertfordshire, Telford and Shrewsbury. Black Lives Matter protesters have taken down or pressured cities to take down several statues of slave traders across the country, and many more soon-to-be unrevered slave owners are being queued up to get knocked off their blocks as we reassess what is worth celebrating about history and our collectively created futures. Meanwhile, police snatch squads have been operating at the demonstrations, swarming and arresting individuals on their hit list for previous actions allegedly having taken place many months ago. Social centres and house raids have also taken place while protesters have been held in custody. Off the back of these protests, calls to defund the police are gaining public attention across the UK, just as the government announced a plan to build 4 new mega prisons around the UK. Alongside and aligned with BLM, Justice for Grenfell marked the 3-year anniversary of the Grenfell Tower fire, where 72 people died, with silent protests and the launch of 72 billboards around London with the names of those who did not manage to escape the blaze. In the last few weeks, there have also been several heavy clashes with police as they tried to attack and shut down raves taking place in London, in Brixton, Notting Hill, Hackney and Manchester. Multiple cops and their cars were, sadly, decommissioned during the events. A confederation of COVID-19 solidarity funds have come together from across the UK, forming a network of mutual aid economic support for those who are struggling. The fund's core principles include asking no questions about how individuals who request money choose to spend it, the redistribution of wealth from higher-earning to lower-earning individuals being based on the conscious and deliberate relearning of trust in our fellow humans against everything that capitalism tries to make us fear. Remote donations to the Solidarity Funds can be made through their Open Collective profile page. The Coal Action Network and the Campaign to Save Pont Valley are celebrating their win against the bank group's plan to extend the Bradley opencast coal mine in the north of England. The site would have caused another 90,000 tonnes of coal to be extracted this coming year, but this coal will now be staying in the ground. The IWGB, the Independent Workers' Union of Great Britain, is mounting a legal battle against the Mayor of London's decision to extend the London congestion charge to include minicab drivers. They argue that the charge discriminates against the minicab sector's overwhelmingly black and minority ethnic workforce, who will be forced to pay a significant portion of their daily wage. And finally, sometimes it's worth it to hound the police. 7 years after being harassed at the UK border under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act, Tom Anderson, a British anarchist writer and organiser, has received a nice chunk of money in compensation for his time. Schedule 7 powers are often used in a racialised way. A report by the Islamic Human Rights Commission found that only 19% of people stopped for over an hour under the Act were white. A further study at Cambridge University found that 88% of those stopped under Schedule 7 at one particular airport were Muslim. A 2019 report by Cage found that police Schedule 7 stops of Muslims amounted to racial and religious profiling. Commenting on the case, the Network for Police Monitoring have argued that we need to see these powers abolished. And that's it for our roundup of bad news, beamed to you from our basement in the belly of the beast. Catch our regular show on the first Friday of each month at dissidentisland.org.
This is The Final Straw, and I'm Bursa Gunness. This show will later be archived at thefinalstrawradio.noblogs.org, and you can email us with questions and suggestions at thefinalstrawradio@riseup.net or thefinalstrawradio@protonmail.com. If you'd like to use any episode for your project or radio show, feel free to do so. Just send us an email to let us know. If you care to, you can send us letters at The Final Straw Radio, P.O. Box 6004, Asheville, North Carolina, 28816. This show is brought to you by Firestorm Books and Coffee. Located at 610 Haywood Road, Firestorm Books and Coffee is a worker-owned co-op in Asheville specializing in offbeat, underground, and independent literature. You can find a catalog of Firestorm's books and zines, plus a full calendar of events up at their website, firestorm.coop.